and our professional lives. Communication is operationalized empathy. We connect to others. We build relationships. We build trust through our communication. We need to take the time to learn to craft our messages in a manner that's compelling, concise, and clear. I don't have to tell this room the importance of communication. So today I am thrilled not only to receive the award, but to take you through some activities and ideas to help you further develop your communication skills. Now, I believe the best way to learn communication is to do communication. Are you willing to help me do some communication today?
Yeah.
Very, very good. So let's get started. I'd love for all of you to read the sentence that you see projected here. And what's more important to me than the meaning of the sentence is I would like for you to simply count the number of F's, the letter F. How many do you find? Keep the number quiet to yourself. How many do you find? I'll give you 3 or 4 seconds to do this. How many F's are in this sentence? Wow, I wish my MBA students were as quiet as you all are. That's fantastic. All right, shh. By show of hands, how many of you found 3 F's? Awesome, very, very good. Many of you. 4? How many found 4? Excellent. Anybody find 5? Now I feel like an auctioneer. Great. Anybody find 6? There are 6 F's in this sentence. What 2-letter word ending in F did many of us miss? Finish, final, scientific, and then those 3 ofs. Why do I start every class, every workshop, every keynote with this activity? I'll tell you the truth. Many years ago when I saw this for the first time, I found 3, I felt stupid, and I like to pass that feeling. No. That's not why I do it. I do it because this is an exact analogy of what it takes to learn effective communication skills. It's about little things that make a big difference. Many of us miss, myself included, the word of. When it comes to honing and developing skills, we have to focus on the little things. And today, that's my intent. Today, we're going to focus on 4 F's, not 6, that effectively influence your communication. So let's get started. The first has to do with focus. Many of us, when we communicate, we ramble and we say more than we need to say because we're discovering what it is we want to say as we're saying it. My mother has wonderful advice that I try to follow. And I invite all of you to follow her advice as well. It is simply, tell the time, don't build the clock. Many of us, when we communicate, are clock builders. We want everybody to understand everything we know. We want to prove how smart we are, when in fact, we need to put the bottom line up front. We have to focus. So how do we learn to focus? The first thing we need to do is make sure that we have our ideas clear in our mind. Why are we communicating? What is the essence of what we're trying to achieve? Many of us just start talking and discover what it is we want to say as we're saying it. That's not as effective, and that leads us to be unfocused, meander, and wander. This isn't just about formal presentations. This is in our everyday communication. The biggest fight my wife and I have ever had was over toothpaste. You see, she's a roller and I'm a squeezer. How many of you are rollers out there? I get it. It's very efficient, looks nice, you get maximum use of your toothpaste. But to me, squeezing is an act of authority and power. And we used to, when we first got married and moved in with each other, we fought all the time over the toothpaste because nothing is worse to a roller than a squeezer. Now you're sitting there thinking, hey, this is simply resolved. Just get 2 tubes. And to this day, after 25 years of marriage, we still have 2 tubes of toothpaste. But it turned out it wasn't about the toothpaste. Because then it moved to, is the toilet seat up or the toilet seat down? Is the toilet paper over or under? I don't know why it was all in the bathroom. But the point here is not my personal idiosyncrasies. It's about understanding what the real issue is. Before we can communicate, we have to understand the topic, the issue. Now, my wife is far smarter than I, and she realized that we weren't fighting over toilets and toothpaste. We were fighting over respect. We were fighting over how we each do the things that we do. And once we identified the topic, the conversation and communication could follow. So my first challenge of focus to all of you is to understand what is the core at which you are trying to target. What is it you are trying to communicate about? The key here is you must be specific. Many of the entrepreneurs that I coach and I teach fail in making their actions specific. At the end of a pitch, they'll say things like, I want your support. But what does that mean? Does that mean writing a check, a like on social media, opening up the Rolodex and making connections? Be specific. Know, feel, do. Let me give you an example. My goal for what I am doing at this very moment is as follows. I want you to leave here knowing best practices based on academic research that will help you be more effective in your communication. I want you to feel confident in your ability to use these tools and maybe even excited. And ultimately, I'd like you to put several of the things I talk about today into your upcoming communication. That's my goal. Everything I am saying is based on that goal. And if I'm thinking to myself, should I say it, shouldn't I say it? I think about my goal. It is a way to get fidelity into your communication. Now, by the way, a goal has an additional benefit. It helps you assess your success. I have the good fortune of traveling all over the world teaching communication skills. And I will always ask people, how do you know if your communication was successful? And you know the number one answer I get? I got through it. As if survival is the best metric for communication success. I hope you agree with me, that's ridiculous. So instead we should be saying, is the audience leaving knowing what I want them to know, feeling how I want them to feel, and likely to do what I want them to do? Not. Wouldn't it be great if the subject line were the now what, here's the action, the body is the what, and the so what? You can do this in spontaneous situations. Everything I've been talking about so far is more for planned communication, where you have time to think about it, you have time to practice, you can get feedback. But that's not most of our communication. Most of our communication happens in the moment. Table topics, where people just ask you a question, you have to respond. You make a mistake, you have to fix it. Somebody asks you for feedback and you have to deliver it. This structure, what, so what, now what, helps. Imagine you're coming out of a meeting with a colleague, and your colleague turns to you and says, how do you think that meeting went? You could answer, in what, so what, now what? I thought the meeting went really well, except when you talked about the implementation plan. You spoke quickly, and you didn't give as much detail as you did elsewhere. That's the what. When you speak quickly without a lot of detail, people might think you're unprepared or you're nervous. That's the so what. Next time, slow down and include these additional bits of information. That's the now what. By simply answering what, so what, now what, you actually can easily help your audience understand your information. Both. So if I'm going to have a heated conversation with my children and I see it as I'm going to battle, that influences the words I use and the approach I have. Instead, if I were to see it as a problem to be solved where I need to invite their help, that changes the way I approach it. So framing is not just the words you speak, it's the words you tell yourself. Michelle likes to say, mind your mindset. Think about your mindset as you approach your communication. Is it an opportunity? Is it a threat? Many of us approach our communication as if it is threatening to us. That's why we've experienced the anxiety we do. Instead, see it as an opportunity to connect. Words matter. Speaking of words, we have to make sure that our words are clear. Remember that curse of knowledge? Because of that curse of knowledge, we tend to use technical speak, jargon, acronyms, and that can get in the way of people understanding us. We have to make sure we define our terms. I have another colleague, his name is Huggy Rao. He likes to talk about jargon monoxide. It suffocates communication. You must define your terms. Now, I go around teaching communication all over the place. Sometimes I do work for governments and for the military. I was on an Army base, actually not very far from here, a couple years ago. And I said what I just said to you about we have to define our terms. And a gentleman raised his hand and said, we don't have that problem here. And I almost fell over because nowhere are there more acronyms in the military. So I said, tell me, what do you mean? What do you mean by that? He said, we have a goat for that. I said, a goat? You sacrifice an animal and everybody understands? What do you mean? He said, no. We have a glossary of acronyms and terms. In other words, they have so many that they codified it and put it into something that they then gave an acronym to. You must think about the words you use. At 2 in the morning last night, I saw connection happening. At 6 in the morning, I saw connection happening. Communication is about feeling, emotion, and connection. We need to put an emphasis on that. When we communicate, we have to think about how can we bring about that feeling that we want. Let me give you some examples. When you want to bring about emotion in somebody, you have 3 tools at your disposal: testimonials, examples, and data. Testimonials, examples, and data. Testimonials are third-party voices that reinforce what you're saying. When you advocate for something, people are a little dubious. Why? Because you're advocating for it. Is there something that you have to gain? So pulling in a third-party voice, somebody else, that adds support and it brings emotion to it. Examples come in 2 varieties: stories you tell and demonstrations you show. If I want to move my audience, I tell stories. Human beings are storytelling machines. Long before our species had the written word, the ability to write, we transmitted information through story, folklore, legends. We are wired for story. When you tell a story to somebody, your brain waves and their brain waves sync up. They mirror each other. It's called cognitive entrainment. The same thing happens when you dance and when you play and listen to music together. We are wired for that synchrony. Stories do that. A time to think about what's working, what's not working. You know that definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results? We must reflect. Every day, at the end of the day, I spend 1 minute thinking about something that went well and something that didn't go well in my communication. I write it down. Every Sunday, I spend 5 minutes reviewing it, and then I come up with a plan for the next week to fix it. I'm not saying I'm a great communicator, but I am certainly a better communicator because of that reflection. And finally, get feedback. You all, as Toastmasters, know the value of feedback. I encourage you to work on your communication. The 4 F's will help you. This room will help you. This organization will help you. Allow me to conclude by asking you to put your fist back up. Did you learn some things today that you think will help continue you on your journey to become a better communicator? I see lots of thumbs up. Thank you. Go back to neutral. Did you have a little bit of fun? Yeah. Then I have done my job. Thank you for the award and this opportunity.